Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game. With me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, I was going to say technically it's Friday morning, but it's not. It is Friday morning. So
yes.
you may only be with me in spirit because you're on the way to Berlin for the Euro final. But luckily you were with me physically when we did this interview. We always like to bring you an interview of a Friday. And this concerns a club we have been talking about with some trepidation for the last, getting on for 2 years, Kieran, and that's Morecambe. We spoke to Richard Allan, who's chair of the Shrimps Trust and a passionate Morecambe fan, to find out what's been happening at the club and what could be happening in the future. And this is what he had to say in a really interesting interview. Richard, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I would say I'm looking forward to getting some insight into the situation, but to be honest, I'm probably nearly as depressed about the whole thing as you are, having researched it. But none of the questions I'm going to ask you have got short answers, sadly. So let's ease ourselves in a little bit, Richard, with you telling us a little bit about yourself, about the Shrimps Trust, and about your role within that.
Yeah, I'm obviously Rich. I've been chairman of the Supporters Trust for the last year or so. I actually helped set up the Shrimps Trust 7 or 8 years ago when we had our last issue with ownership through a chap called Diego Lemos, and that then dragged on for the best part of 6 to 12 months, which then went between Diego Lemos, a chap called Abdul Rahman Al Hashimi, to Graham Bernard, to somebody else, and then landed on the decks of Colin Goldring and Jason Whittingham about 5 years ago or so now, I'd say. And that's where it stayed ever since. I've come and gone off the trust as I've been able to give my time up with my job, and yes, that's where I'm at now.
Right, let's try and unpack this situation bit by bit, because it's a complicated one and it's changing even as we speak this week. So first of all, as I understand it, you're currently owned by Jason Whittingham and the Bond Group, but they put the club up for sale in September 2022. Why did they put it up for sale, and why is it taking so bloody long to sell it?
Well, it's one of the things I'd like to say is that we've not been for sale for 2 years. We've been for sale for nearer 5. The minute that they came in, they I think even at the first meeting that came out, they were never here to grow the football club and to actually be a beneficial owner. They were here to get the football club, put it on an even keel and flip it like you would do a run-down, dilapidated house. So we've only been actively for sale for the last 2 years, but we've really been here for the last 5. When we went up for sale, that was when we were in League Two. In League One, and there's been various rumours and people have come to. We've had one bidder that's approached us directly. There's been other rumours of others interested outside of it. We've had Sergeant Joe Hall as well, who have all tried to do business with Jason Whittingham to come to an appropriate sale and have failed.
My understanding is as well that he's asking a lot more for the club than it's potentially worth, and I'll bring Kieran in a moment to see what he thinks about the value. But it seems to be, from what you and other local journalists have been saying, that he's holding out for much, much more than it's worth.
From what and again, we can only go on hearsay and from people that say that they've dealt with him. The price seems to shift with the tide. It's hard to pin him down for a meeting. It's hard to get a straight answer, all of which has come clear. And it's become, we think, obvious that the people that he's been trying to get through the door for the last 12, 18 months in Sergeant Joe Hall and his consortium either don't put a bid in that's far and above what the ones that have passed the owners directors test have, or haven't got the funds, or there's some issue there from what the reason why they can't get the money from A to B. But that figure that they have is probably far in excess of what he's getting from people who are actually willing to buy the football club and move in weeks rather than months and years.
But I hesitate to say this because it seems to go against the grain, but to be fair to Jason Whittingham, he is continuing to finance the club on a week-to-week basis. So is that right?
Yes and no. So
okay.
he is putting money into the club, but we've missed wages at least 2 or 3 times in the last 12, 18 months by days here and there. We always seem to be on the reddest of red letters for this. Again, I can't say this from truth or knowledge, but from the outside looking in, he's in a position where he can't afford to sell it, he can't afford to finance it. So he's kind of stuck in the, is it Kobayashi Maru, the Star Trek situation where he's in a lose-lose situation. So yeah, he just needs to find a way out, really.
Look at the look on Kieran's face when we mentioned football finance and Star Trek in the same sentence. I've never seen him so happy. Kieran, can you give us any insight, Kieran, into what the value of the club would be and how much he's actually asking for it?
Normally, if you're looking for a club outside of the Premier League, you're probably looking at somewhere between 1.5 to 2 times revenue. Now, based on Morecambe's most recent accounts, and also taking into account the fact that they are in League Two, they've got one of the lowest budgets from a wages point of view. They're losing 30 grand a week according to the accounts as well. So I think they've been reliant, and that's after taking into account player sales. I would imagine revenue is probably in the region of 3 million, 3.5 million. So if you were getting offers of 4, you'd be doing well, and that could be a price. But at the same time, the fact that the club is losing money, and to a certain extent, it's a distressed asset, I would imagine that a bidder would be coming in on substantially lower than that. It does have a long leasehold by the looks of the figures I've got in front of me. But that can be both a benefit and a detriment depending upon your obligations as the person renting the property is concerned. So football is such a unique business that trying to get a definitive price, I think, is very difficult. But we are talking low single millions, and you are effectively inheriting a club, which means an awful lot to the people locally, but it doesn't get any notice. So, for the American investors, and American investors are coming to Carlisle, which is not too far from Morecambe. I think they're in for a bit of a shock in terms of the level of fame that it brings you, because it's not going to be the same as acquiring Wrexham, because you've not got the famous owners necessarily coming in. And then the reality hits. So if they've had a look at the books, I do think Morecambe's one of the better run clubs in football historically, irrespective of the owners. And I think that comes down to the fact that you've got local people on the board who are trying to do their best. But we're not talking big numbers in terms of an overall valuation, because you're inheriting something which is going to cost you not just buying the club, but paying out on a monthly basis to cover the losses.
Richard, Kieran mentioned the leasehold there. In the research that I'm doing, there seems to be some confusion about who owns the stadium in the first place. Would that be right?
There's no confusion. It's a unique situation because the land that the football club is on was bequeathed to the town to have a football club on it by a chap called JB Christie, which is where you have Christie Park, which is the old ground, etc., etc. Yeah. JB's Bar, which is part of the thing. So if you was by the football club, you don't get any of the land. You just get everything above it. So if the football club was to go into administration tomorrow, you could sell all the bricks, the mortar, the gym, the beer pumps, everything that's inside the ground is yours. But as the administrator, but the actual land, you'd have to clear that, and then you'd have to ring fence it off and have a local team set up as AFC Morecambe kicking the ball around on the ground of it. That was done by one of the directors at the time, Stephen Wright, who was a local, runs one of the local successful solicitor practices in the town, and is, from what we can tell, pretty watertight. And we sit alongside that to make sure that there's always a football club playing football in Morecambe.
Well, that's good then, because that it takes away that worry that you might be bought by property speculators who only want the club for the ground it stands on a lovely coastal seaside spot.
Yes, we've already sold what land we had for houses to the left-hand side several years ago. So that's gone. There's the top corner of the ground we don't own anymore. That's owned by a gentleman we may have heard of by the name of Tyson Fury. Behind the scoreboard is where his gym is, so we see him every day. And there's some plastic pictures out the back which he also owns, which if you watch the documentary on Netflix when he lands his helicopter on it, they're actually his own five-a-side pictures that we're not allowed to touch.
There will be people listening to that answer then who says, Tyson Fury, probably the most famous person in Morecambe. Why is he not buying his local club and saving it?
Firstly, he's not local. He's from Manchester.
Okay.
He just happens to live in the. He actually. Oh, sorry, that's a bad accusation, isn't it?
No. I know what you people are like up there when Cockneys make generalisations about local. Sorry.
No, I mean the Tyson's absolutely fantastic for a town. There's not one person that he's not had a chat with and taken a selfie with. He's got time for absolutely everybody around there. He's a very positive natured man around the area, but why does he want the football? He doesn't need it. He's not a massive football fan. He supports Manchester United. He's had numerous functions in the ground. His daughter's prom or some kind of birthday party that Venezuela had was held at the football ground. He's not shy at putting some money in, but he doesn't want to spend millions of pounds on a football club he doesn't want. That's going to cost him somewhere between £500,000 and £1 million a year.
You've hinted at the answer to this question already, Richard, but what is your relationship with the owner currently? I understand you've tried to meet him several times, but without success.
We've met Jason a few times previously to this, and we've been trying to get in contact with him for information on almost a weekly basis, and he's promising it manana, frankly. When it comes to a relationship with the club, we could not have a closer relationship with the board of directors, and you alluded to it before in the podcast. Without them, we wouldn't be here already. It'd have gone a long time ago. Rod Taylor, Graham Howes, Mick Horton, James Wakefield, Charlie Appleyard, the Morecambe through and through. They don't take a penny out of the club. They do everything on top of their own successful businesses free of charge. They're brilliant. We wouldn't be here without them. But Kieran said before, we're a well-run football club that needs a beneficial owner that can fund it to a position that makes it competitive and can help it grow. We sign literally an entire new squad every year. Going on to the valuation of the club that Kieran said, when we had a full squad, we probably might have been worth £2, £3, £4 million. At the minute, we've got 3 players. We don't know why we can't sign the players we've currently got training on the fields behind the ground. So, how much is a football club that you don't own the land and you've only got 3 footballers? It just happens to be in League Two. So, but yes, moving on to the question about the owner, that board of directors are fantastic, and Jason just needs to get out of this logjam and point us towards an owner that wants to grow the football club and wants the ego project and wants to have a bit of fun with us, really, because we're ready to help in every way possible.
The directors have been quite public as well about trying to hold him to account. I read one local newspaper said holding his feet to the fire. I mean, they're really trying to push him to resolve this logjam, as you call it, aren't they? They haven't just sat back and said, well, we'll wait to see what happened.
100%, and that's why we're getting involved and trying to get on more podcasts like this as a trust to firstly put the pressure on Jason to actually get this thing over the line, and secondly, if there is any issues that Jason Whittingham's got that we can perhaps resolve with other buyers, we do have access to a lot of things. I mean, within the trust, we've got a chartered accountant, a financial advisor. I'm a director of a recruitment company. We've got a lot of skills that we can help him with to get this over the line. With whatever issues he's having, he just needs to come out and be open and transparent and show us where the problems are. Really,
we know there have been issues of late payment of wages. You've mentioned them already in the interview. What has the EFL stance been in the last 2 years? I'm
currently trying to get a meeting with the EFL in the next few days or next week, just to say where we are as a trust and to go down that route. But the EFL comes in for a lot of stick. It really does, and a lot of it can be granted. It is merited. with us, I think they've been absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they've been, by all accounts, they've been completely understanding to our plight and where we're at. They've been open and understood and listened. When we're getting fines, it's going against the owner and not the football club. But of course, they can't just sit there forever with us. Some of the stuff that they've asked us to do that the club, that the owner hasn't done, they've got to deduct some points at some point, which is obviously what they did last season, unfortunately, which kind of killed the momentum that we had stone dead.
And is there still a transfer embargo going on? Is that why the squad is currently so small?
We were under a transfer embargo for a VAT issue. Right. I truthfully don't know 100% where that is at the minute. But it's fair to assume if you put two and two together, it must still be some kind of issue there, which is sort of stopping the signing of players, because you only have to go. Our training ground is very much open plan. It's the sports fields of a local college. You only have to go down there and have a look at the field, and there's 15, 20 professionals, half of which you recognise, running around kicking the ball about in pre-season training. So we've clearly agreed some deals that just needs to be ratified.
Right. Kieran, it's encouraging to hear, because we've talked about the EFL being far more proactive when it comes to owners and directors. But what are the limits? Remind our listeners of what the limits are to what the EFL can do when you've got a current owner of a club who is actually still financing it. And it seems to me that out with those wages not being paid, etc., for which there are sanctions, there doesn't seem to be any grounds where the EFL can step in and save Morecambe here.
That's correct. As far as the owners and directors test is concerned, it's very much about people coming in through the indoor. And I think Richard's hinted at this, that the EFL have made it difficult / impossible for at least one prospective owner who, in my view, would have been an absolute disaster for a club. We won't name them. But they put up sufficient barriers of a decent height to make that person go away, although they might be trying to come back for all we know. But with regards to an existing owner, you've got to have a ratified list of issues which have been not complied with. And in terms of Jason Whittingham, he satisfied the rules when he came into the club. He is providing some form of funding, even though on an erratic level. The fact that he's awkward, that in itself is not a sufficient reason to sanction him. It's when the club is hit in terms of non-compliance with regards to paying wages on time, paying taxes on time. That's when the EFL, as Richard has said, does have an obligation to come in and get involved. That they have certainly upped their game in recent years, and we're not saying that because we're friends with Trevor. I've seen their club reporting panel. They've certainly improved the governance side of things, but there's a limit to what they can do, because you've still got to you've got to be able to replace an existing director, or an existing owner, should I say, with somebody who is willing to take on the responsibilities of a club in the lower leagues, which, like the vast majority, is not necessarily going to be profitable. And there's not a long list of people, but there is a list of people that are willing to do that.
Kieran, I won't ask you to name the prospective buyer that you don't like the sound of, but why are you so reluctant not to name him?
Because I know what the EFL have done, and I know the person involved, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to say. At the same time, you don't have to be on Mastermind to probably work out who I'm alluding to.
Yeah, okay. Is he from Birmingham, by the way?
I'm not saying.
Richard, was there ever a chance that the Trust could bid to take the club over? Was that a conversation?
I've yet to check my Euro Millions ticket from last night. So,
right.
I was speaking to, I've spoken to a few Indians about this before. As a Shrimps Trust, as the fan base out there, we would struggle to. We would struggle to buy it, and we would struggle to fund it. We would definitely find it impossible to do both. We've currently got a Save Our Shrimps GoFundMe. If you could put that in your notes for the podcast, that'd be fantastic, which is currently at £28,500 that we're trying to raise £50,000 for. And that is to, for want of a better phrase, be something as in case of emergency, hit this box. So should Jason Whittingham fall out of cash and he can't sell the club and the football club goes into administration or it goes into liquidation, whatever it is, we then have a fund of cash that we can then, help pay the administrative costs, get back into whatever football league we can get into and grow from there. If we don't end up not needing that money, that's going into the upkeep of the club. We'll use that for a capital project, be it a new car park, a new bar, something like that. But that's what we instead of focusing on what we can't do, I've tried to focus on what we can do, which is to have as much money as what we can in case if we do have to go down that route, because there's been far too many clubs that weren't ready at this point. We've been preparing for catastrophe now for what feels like far too long.
In terms of the fans, Richard, is there unity? I know from experience, as a Palace fan, astonishingly, there are still people, as the plane took off to Newcastle, during which journey we went into administration, there were still people saying, "Oh, Simon Jordan could turn this club round." He's are there still Morecambe fans who go, "Well, actually, be careful what you wish for. This guy is financing the club. Maybe we don't want a stranger coming in and taking over." Or is it fairly unanimous that Morecambe fans want a change and they want it quickly?
I'm sure there's some people who have sympathy for Jason somewhere. I'm just yet to meet them, frankly. As a trust, one of the things we're very proud of is that our home fan base is somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 fans roughly that turn up every game, depending on the size of it. Last year we had 800 members of the Shrimps Trust. Most of those will be game going every week, week in, week out, people that go there. So we haven't got every single Morecambe fan, but we do speak as one voice, and we do have a large number of people in the trust compared to other clubs. We definitely have more people in our trust than a good chunk of Premier League teams, which is quite something. So we had a march trying to advertise the sales of the club earlier this year. That was very, very well attended. The club are speaking. The fans do tend to speak with one voice on the matter. But equally, whoever comes in, they will get a fair hearing. If they're transparent, they could come from Birmingham, Timbuktu, or anywhere in between. They'll get a fair hearing if they're transparent, the money's there, and they want to have some fun with us, frankly.
It's as the word that Kieran's been using since we started this pod, transparent, is the important thing. But it just beggars the fact that the fans are so unified makes it even more incredible that the owner won't sit down and talk with them, because clearly you're not troublemakers. You're committed Morecambe fans concerned about the future of the club. You're not going to threaten him. Why can't he just sit down? He doesn't even have to be in the same room. He can do it on Zoom if he's scared. Why won't he do that?
That is a question for Jason Whittingham, frankly. Okay. I can come to my own conclusions as to why. There's been a few bits of mischief on Twitter, but if this was quote unquote a big club, even a Palace or something like that, there'd be people around his house. There'd be people doing all sorts. All that's happening here is we've got a few people that are jumping up and down, asking to be told the truth about what's going on in the football club. He could have been a lot. His name's not. If you Google Jason Whittingham, it's probably not a pleasant experience for him. But if this was a Manchester United, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, or a Millwall, or one of the bigger clubs in League One, it'd be. I can imagine what would happen outside his house, let alone a few nasty things said on Twitter.
Yeah, actually, if you Google Jason Whittingham, there's surprisingly little about him there, which is even more worrying than the fact that they're being page after page.
You need to put a few different words in after it, frankly, to usually get into stuff like that. And that's not swear words, it's just cases that have come up with him regarding Worcester, regarding other issues that he's had, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, Kieran and I will probably mention those in our response when we've done the interview and we carry on with the rest of the pod, because I don't think it'd be fair to ask you to elaborate on that. But what I will ask you is, we've talked of rumours just this week, in the last 2 days, a lot. It even reached the national media. That's how big these rumours are, of a takeover this week being, and I quote, at an advanced stage. What do you know about that?
Well, I've been watching non-league football and lower league football now for far too long that I've got the grey hairs coming through to prove it now at 44 years of age. I think we all know we've all heard the words in other football clubs of the takeover is imminent, the cheque is in the post. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we've heard those words once every 3 months for 4 or 5 years now. Let's hope it is. Let's hope it is. Let's hope it's somebody who wants to come and meet with the Shrimps Trust with transparent funds that wants to fund the club to a sustainable is quite a word to use because losing £500,000 is probably not sustainable, but a loss which isn't eye-wateringly large of £7, £8, £9 million that you get in the Championship. Let's hope it's true because Jason Whittingham probably will sleep better at night once it's gone because he's got to worry about a business that's losing $30,000 a week, as Kieran says. Everybody wants this to move forward.
Kieran, there is this worry with Jason Whittingham as well because he was involved with Worcester Warriors, wasn't he? Which a rugby club which went to the wall. Do you have any information on who these new owners might be? And also, if we talk about transparency again, why can't we be told? Or why can't Richard be told? Why can't the Morecambe fans be told? These are the people that want to buy the club. This is what they want to do with the club, rather than just getting these hints and rumours and knowing nothing about it before it does or doesn't happen.
I think in defence of a prospective owner, sometimes they like to go under the radar because the first thing that we would do, and Richard would do, and all the members of the trust would do, if you get a name, is you Google that person to the nth degree. And that can work for the person if they've got a positive profile. If that profile is a bit more obscure, you'd be on Company's House, you'd be looking at the companies that they own, that they're involved with. Our friend Martin Caladine's been doing some spectacular work with regards to that. In one person who has been, once again, rumoured to be involved or rumoured to be interested. So I can understand people wanting a degree of privacy, at the same time acknowledging that once they're in the hot seat, they become not public property, but their profile is held to account. So there is that, but at the same time, it's not done the likes of Jim Ratcliffe any harm to stick his name in the ring at Manchester United, and we've seen in respect to some of the other owners. It doesn't always work positively because if it was Lawrence Bassini, if it was William Storey, some of the people that have been doing the rounds of individual clubs, that can provoke quite a hostile reaction. And in the case of those two people, rightly so, let it be said. So, Jason Whittingham's doing what's best for Jason Whittingham. He's not doing what's best for Morecambe Football Club, and that's why he's probably saying you keep out of the public profile unless you want to take it on. Because what happens if somebody says, yes, I am interested, and then at the last minute, for whatever reason, could be that the goalposts have been moved in terms of price, in terms of the assets, and that could provoke a hostile reaction from the fan, from somebody who's entered into these negotiations in genuine good faith. So things can work out wrongly from, the owner could be a wrong one, and some of the clubs, fans, the Charlton dossier, for example, is absolutely brilliant work with regards to some of their prospective owners, and indeed people who actually got past the line. Do you want that aggravation? Would be my view.
Richard,
if I could add into that as well,
of course.
If you go to our statement from last week, we met with a buyer who wanted to remain nameless. The reason is because his wealth is tied up in directorships of various PLCs. That his bidding for a football club would affect his own businesses, finances, share prices, etc., etc., etc. But this is a man that said, "I'm here. Here's what it all is, but I can't say this can't go in the public domain because until it goes in the public domain because of legal issues if it's shown. Complete transparency. So these people can put their hands up and be confident that that us at the Shrimps Trust will keep everything in complete confidence.
Did he indicate how much he'd bid for the club, Richard?
He did, but again, I can't mention those.
Of course not. No, but it was what you'd consider a viable bid.
It was significantly north of what we consider the club to be worth.
Well, okay, but obviously, your own an offer wasn't accepted then.
No.
Okay, well that's depressing. I've got a couple of questions for you, Richard. The first one, just to finish, rather, the first one, Kieran might be able to add more detail in, because in the research I was doing yesterday, quite far down in some of the small print of news journalism, it seems that the government have claim to money being owned by, going back to COVID days. Is that, have I got that right?
Well, I think the government did make potential funds available, but I don't see anything here, and I'm looking at the accounts as we speak, so that's why this is more visual than audio. But I don't see anything significant in terms of that. I mean, there are buyback loans. Is it COVID buyback loans? Okay, but I don't see that being a hurdle to any prospective takeover.
It's all getting rather pressing now, though, Richard, isn't it? I mean, this is why I'm so annoyed to hear you say that you spoke with a potential buyer who made a viable bid, because you have only got 5 for the moment. I know you've said you've seen players train, but technically you've only got 5 players under contract. It's not that far till the season starts. So I mean that this situation needs to be sorted out now, doesn't it? The deadline has suddenly become a lot more focused.
I mean, if we just forget about the 5 footballers for a moment, because when you're a footballer, and the people that we've got, they're in demand. You know, if we didn't exist, they'd probably get another football club quite quickly at this time of year. Although it's not ideal, it's not I'm not too worried about the footballers, but we've probably got 30 to 35 members of staff, be it, anything from bar staff all the way up to commercial managers, selling sponsorships, selling tickets, making sure the match day experience. They must be terrified about their money not hitting every month. I've worked at businesses like that. That's what's important here. You know, if Morecambe are playing in the Conference North or the Premier League, I'm still going. The people that go every week are still going. You know, the people that are there running this community asset are what's important, and they need to have stability to know that they can pay the rent, pay the food bills, pay the council tax, pay for away tickets, all the essentials, and that's what's important. And yes, let's get the embargo out of the way and let's start playing football. And hopefully, I can appear on podcasts where I discuss the merits of one left winger versus a right back at some point soon. But yes, it really does get to moved on, and ideally by the end of the week. We've got all our pre-season stuff starting Saturday, Tuesday for the next 3 weeks. And the minute we're having to send academy teams because we can't send, we haven't got players registered.
And I'm guessing of those 35 people who are anxious about their future, 35 of them are Morecambe fans as well, aren't they?
Why would you not? Why would you work at a club where you don't know if you're going to get paid if you weren't absolutely passionate about the business you were working for and had it at the heart of what you're doing day in, day out and trying to improve the area? Frankly, because I wouldn't work in it.
It's really difficult to explain to non-football fans why this stuff is important, Richard, because there is an attitude amongst some non-football fans that, and I hate it, but you have to confront it. There are people who are saying, well, other local businesses go out. Well, why should football clubs be different? And sometimes I don't struggle for the answer, but they need to listen to people like you. How have the past couple of years been for you and the other Morecambe fans?
Bizarrely, I want to be very positive here. So, since the last 4 or 5 years have come in and we've had a few new directors join and we had a new CEO join, the difference in that football club and the community spirit behind it is something out of this world. Like we have a Veterans Day, a Veterans Morning, coffee morning, once a week or once a fortnight. That's attended by 150 veterans that have said that it's improved their mental health, it's improved their their well-being, that they feel part of something rather than just being stuck in the home by themselves and things like that. We've got the academy that goes from strength to strength, that's bringing local people through into football, and it's like one of my best friends is a Blackpool fan, and for 3-4 years of the Oyston thing, he lost all his friends. He couldn't, he wasn't seeing his friends once every week, once every 2 weeks, and it's not about the people kicking the football, about whether you win or lose. It's the bonds you make with the people there that become the family the family you choose rather than the family that you inherit. And the fact that it's people, these are community assets, and it doesn't matter whether it's a football team, a rugby union side, a cricket team, wherever it is, they're all essential to communities to make sure that people connect, because we all live in a world now where, even 5 years ago, pre-COVID, if we're having this conversation for a radio show or something like that, I'm going to a studio somewhere and meeting you and having a drink and maybe having a bite to eat or something after that. Now we do it on through a computer screen and never actually have that human connection. These community assets provide the human connections that keep people going.
Do you know, Richard, I'm going to clip that, and the next time somebody asks me why football is so important, I'm just going to play that to them. And I tell you what, when this is all resolved, and it's resolved properly, come down to London. We'll have that pint. We'll have that meal.
I will take you up on that. We've got Bromley. Bromley's quite near Crystal Palace, isn't it, or somewhere around that neck of the woods? So that'll be. I've already got that keyed in for one of my away days this year.
You see, if I was to say, Morecambe's quite near Bury, and I would get slaughtered. The amount of tweets I'd get from people going, "I don't know anything about it."
45 minutes. 45 minutes. You drive it.
As it happens, Richard, you are correct. You are you're absolutely right. Bromley is just down. It's just down the road from Palace. So
if you go on to, I was saying this to my partner the other day, is that football is such an educational tool for the geography of the world and the country. Why would you ever know where San Marino is if it wasn't for football? Why would I ever know where Bromley, Aldershot, Weymouth, I wouldn't know where any of the Yeovil. Why would I know that Yeovil's near Glastonbury if I hadn't been there in 2000 and whenever? You just wouldn't know it, would you? Why
would you ever know that they used to make saddles in Walsall?
Exactly.
That's how you learn it. Yeah, do you know what, the Bromley thing is great? It's a Bromley thing, it probably is the closest. Unfortunately, we've lost Sutton, which is a great shame.
Yeah.
But Bromley was on the east side of the coast. But all Palace fans are delighted that Bromley are in the league now, because it's a boost to that small part of South East London. It's a huge boost, and there isn't. Sometimes people think, clubs in London don't have the same community feel. Clubs on the South Coast don't have the same, but they do. They do, which is why we all share in what's going on at you. So, all right, we'll make that deal. As long as Palace are not playing on the same day, I'll come and meet you when you're down at Bromley. How's that?
Yeah, that'll be absolutely super, Kieran. I look forward to it.
All right, Richard. Thank you so much, and hopefully, I look forward to as well in the next couple of weeks being able to announce on the Price of Football that there has been some movement. And obviously, we wish you all the best in what you're doing up there. I was fascinated. We mentioned on the pod yesterday Arsenal casually snipping 20,000 members from the list for ticket infringements, which puts the 800 members that Morecambe have into context. But that's a third of their fan base, basically, a part of the Shrimps Trust, which shows how worried they are about what's going on up there. And of all the things he told me, and of course Richard had to be circumspect about names and whatever, but to be told that he's met with somebody who wants to buy the club and has offered more than the price that's been asked for it and has been turned down, just really, it made my blood boil. It really got me annoyed.
And rightly so. The logic and behaviour of Jason Whittingham, the present owner, who, as you'll find from the interview, was a person that's not interested in the football club. He's run Worcester Warriors out of being a business. He's looking to make money from a deal. Is baffling. You'd have thought that Jason Whittingham would have learnt his lesson by now, that Morecambe's not making money. Potentially it's going to have to be subsidised or financially supported by an owner. And the quicker he gets out, the quicker he can get on with the rest of his life. But sometimes we find people are very stubborn, and sometimes we find out that people become convinced that their own perception of value is not one which is matched by the rest of the business community. And this does appear to be where we are here. I am feeling positive, however, in the sense that there must have been other offers. My only concern is if there is an offer from another party which is even higher, but is based on a foundations of sand and complicated company relationships and so on. And if your head is turned by things like that, it could be that you feel that you can get more money for the club, and therefore you turn down a realistic offer in respect of hoping to get one which won't necessarily be approved by the EFL.
So is that a scenario, Kieran, and again I wouldn't ask you to mention any names, but is that a scenario whereby somebody buys the club on behalf of somebody else who was unable to buy the club previously?
Could be something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you do is you set up a myriad of companies and intercompany loans and relationships, right, which make life very complicated to try to get to the bottom of.
And just in terms of the Worcester Warriors thing, should Jason Whittingham divest himself of Morecambe and then try and buy another football club? When the EFL are looking at their fit and proper persons test, for want of a better word, would the fact that a rugby club went under his jurisdiction worry them, or do they only look at previous football business?
You are not allowed to buy a football club if you have been involved in more than 2 football-related insolvency events.
Right.
So I think rugby club wouldn't come in within that definition.
Okay.
As far as looking at it through a moral or ethical lens, again, that is not applied. It's a case of it's got to be factual, and I absolutely understand the reasons why. Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean you can deny them the access to buying a football club. But the key issues would be, do you have an outstanding criminal record, and do you have the funds and are able to evidence the source of funds with regards to that?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you there slightly, Kieran, because I think we have implied to Trevor Birch that the very first clause in the unfit and proper persons test should be checking whether you and I like the person who wants to buy the club. And if the answer is no, then they should be immediately told they can't buy that club, Kieran. I think that would make life a lot more easier for football fans up and down the country.
Yes. Sounds fair to me.
Thank you to everyone who's donated to the pod via our Patreon page. If you'd like to make a small monthly contribution to the pod as well, that would be very kind of you. It will get you access to our chat community and our regular quizzes, and you can do that by going to patreon.com/priceoffootball. If you've got a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. And you can go to the same website if you want to buy our book, coming out on paperback soon. And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter, X, and find us on YouTube. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.